only had 34 million South Africans. We had 1 million public servants. Today, when the population has nearly doubled to 60 million, we have about 1.2 million public servants with about 10% vacancies. It makes no sense that our hospitals and our classrooms are literally overstretched to the point of collapse. And the society depends on quality public services. We saw when government invested in the South African Revenue Service by appointing additional staff, it saw a significant increase in the revenue collection. So for us, it doesn't make sense when we're trying to rebuild the economy to deliver quality public services that we should say, let's cut the public service ratio. So we want to agree to that as Cosatu because we think it's critical that the state be well capacitated to deliver quality education and healthcare, safety and security, roads and so forth. Equally, you have an economy which is struggling and suffocating for stimulus. So to freeze infrastructure expenditure makes no sense. We've seen many companies closing because government, whether it's national, provincial, local, is failing to provide decent roads, electricity, railway network connections, water, sanitation, and so forth. So again, if we're going to freeze the infrastructure expenditure, how exactly do we expect the economy to grow? So we think government is going about this the wrong way. We agree the state is in a crisis. We need to find a way to pay down the debt. But you need to do that by addressing the fundamental concerns. And the problem is not the wage bill. The wage bill has been stable at 35% of the budget since 2009. What has changed this year from the revenue overcollection we had last year is that Transnet is in a serious crisis. Transnet is moving less goods today than they moved in 1994. So let's deal with that fundamental issue, which is cable theft and mismanagement, corruption, and lack of investment in Transnet and so forth. The need to modernize the port infrastructure. But pickpocketing nurses and underpaying teachers or police officers is not going to fix the railway network or the port. Doesn't make any sense at all.
Why does it always seem to be the public wage bill, Matthew, that comes under scrutiny every time there's a potential talk of, let's call it austerity measures, as I said in my introduction? Why go after the wage bill so quickly? Is it because it's low-hanging fruit?
No, exactly. It's an easy, low-hanging fruit. So in 2020, former Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, imposed a wage freeze in the public service. That didn't resolve anything. Transnet, Metrorail, Denel, Eskom, all of those local government remain in a crisis because you have not dealt with the fundamental issues of mismanagement, corruption, lack of investment in infrastructure, etc. So what government can oppose a wage freeze, all it will do is to further weaken the state. It's not going to resolve the fundamental issues of facing the economy. And the reason why the state is having declining revenues is because companies are struggling. And they're struggling not because of what you pay a nurse or a security guard. They're struggling because of a lack of reliable electricity. Mining is a critical contributor of foreign exchange revenue to the country and revenue to the state. Mining is struggling to get its coal exports and so forth out onto the trains and through the ports, etc. So you have to address that issue. Same thing with manufacturing, same thing with agriculture. But this kind of lazy, quick route, let's go to the computer, let's just simply propose a wage freeze, let's cut the amount of public service we have, let's offer early retirement packages, not going to resolve the thing. We're going to be in the same crisis next year, the year after, unless we deal with the fundamental issues affecting the economy.
And where does the talk and the view of Cosatu then, where's the talk in Cosatu's offices about possibly Treasury wanting to increase VAT by 2%? As you say, they're not, the government isn't dealing with the issues. What they're just doing is trying to cut back costs and then try and get more money from taxpayers. It doesn't seem really fair when you break it down, does it?
It's not fair because that is a regressive tax. It hits the poor the hardest because a person who earns 5,000 rand a month, that's a significant further pinching of the wallet. Already people who are low-income earners have struggled because of high inflation, electricity, fuel, food inflation, etc. So squeezing them further is not going to help. The previous VAT hike about 5 years ago didn't actually generate as much as Treasury thought it would. The better way to generate additional revenue for the state is simply to invest more in the South African Revenue Service. SARS, because of an additional investment of about 1 billion rand, was able to hire additional 500 staff, invest in IT capacity and so forth. And it managed to increase tax compliance by about 60 billion rand, from 61 to 64%. So a simple common sense approach would say, let's invest further in SARS, give them an additional 10 billion rand, for example, knowing that out of that, they can generate probably about 100 billion rand in additional tax revenue, not through new taxes, which everybody would hate, but simply ensuring tax compliance. That's a much smarter, more sustainable, more fair and sober approach.
How do you, as Cosatu, take this fight on? If this is now a proposal by Treasury, what is Cosatu going to do today, Matthew, to try and prevent this from happening? What's your next step?
Well, in fact, we're meeting with government today to hear what exactly is the situation, because we've now been disadvantaged because we've seen 2 weeks of leaks from government about this kind of proposals. We've seen a circular from Treasury to all departments to cut expenditure, to freeze vacancies, freeze infrastructure programs, etc. So we're meeting with government today. We hope to hear an honest reflection from them about what exactly is the state of the fiscus, what exactly they're planning to do. We will table our own views to them today in ongoing discussions we hope to have, what ways we think are much better to grow the economy, to stabilize electricity and rail, to help businesses to grow and to create jobs and so forth. So we hope to have an honest discussion, but we're also quite fearful that we have about 6 weeks left to the medium-term budget statement of Parliament. So we really hope Treasury and government will engage in good faith and that we can find a common sense solution, because we don't want government to collapse. We don't want the government to go to the IMF in a year, 2 years' time, because that'll be a disaster, not just for workers, but for businesses, for the state, for society. So we need government to succeed, but we also need government to be a little bit more sober on some of these issues and deal with the real fundamental issues, not look for red herrings.
Yeah, we can't keep lending our way out of an economic crisis. Matthew Parks, thank you very much indeed, Cosatu Parliamentary Officer, making time this morning off the back of